Are you biased? Let's talk about that. We only have 2 parents in the household and maybe a few siblings. You have a sample size limitation of 2 to 10 if you have big family. There are outdated beliefs, limiting beliefs that we need to get rid of right now. Welcome back to PhD Coffee Time. This is the online community for you as PhD student to get motivation, peer support, and practical tips during your PhD. This is a topic I think we don't talk about enough, but I think we all somehow observed it. First, I know we are all having sentiment with the news in America and what's happening right now in the country. I hope this video convinces you that it is possible to change your perspective in terms of checking your bias and adjusting it so that it is more open and appropriate for this world. I also hope that I can highlight this importance of it from an academic standpoint. Imagine you are the professor that mentor a team of students in the future. You need to make sure you are not ignorant about the dynamics in the society, because the research environment is easy to blind us from all the news and everything that's going on because we are primed to be tunnel visioned. If you're applying to a job in America, in your job application package, you will have your CV, cover letter, teaching statement, and research statement. The 5th document is called diversity statement. You need to explain to this search committee why you think you will do a good job and how you think you can do a good job to promote diversity in your research lab. Are you aware of the achievement gaps that is present statistically in the society, that people of color, Hispanic and African typically have a lower graduation rate because of the difference in education resources? Asian and white community are achieving higher. So being a professor, this concerns you because you're going to be an educator for all of this diverse group. And this is why this video is relevant to PhD Coffee Time, because if you have never thought about this topic, think about it now. I'd like to focus in this video on seeing how we could be biased and what are the ways I've learned to improve our sensitivity, that whether or not I have become biased without intention. We learn a lot of things in university, but part of the beauty of education is to be able to unlearn. There are outdated beliefs, limiting beliefs that we need to get rid of right now. And that is part of your education. So if you failed it, even you get your nature paper, science paper, I don't care, you are still failing your PhD education. Science is only possible with diversity and ideas from every skin color, every gender, and every ethnicity. If we have a bias, that means you are a poor scientist. Imagining someone sampling in the lab and they are picking and choosing the right cell to analyze the fluorescence, picking and choosing animal to test for your experiment without randomization. That's going to cause poor science. And that is exactly why clinical research have to be blinded. Even the doctors giving this drug to the patient, they do not have idea if this is the drug or placebo. And that is going to be an important step in scientific discovery, is to avoid a bias. And same as when you have 2 rectangles that is gray color, if it is in the black background or white background, you might be perceiving that these 2 rectangles are different shades of gray. But now, because you are informed that they are the same gray rectangle, you know that they are the same shade. You see, this is the power of education and the power to unlearn something that is not helping you to make decisions. I hope this video is going to motivate you to continue this openness to shape yourself in the way that is best going to serve the society. Let's say our society is composed of all these different faces that you see on this picture. Who do you think is the person that is expecting a baby this year? And who is the CEO of a tech company? Who stays at home to provide childcare? And who is the programmer? See, these immediate images in your brain explains that we function by experience and our brain is programmed to think of what's familiar. So let's try the other one. Who do you think is a person who loves basketball? Who loves to cook? And who loves to read books? Who loves to check iPhone constantly every day? The answer is we don't know, and it's important to remind ourselves that we don't have idea, and it is important that we don't limit ourselves by having this judgment from our previous experience to limit our future imagination. Now, here are some adjectives that people could have. Someone who is unprofessional, someone who is a difficult person to work with, someone who is a poor leader, and someone who is a murderer. It would be dangerous if we assume any of these negative traits. So I hope this exercise helps you to identify maybe we all have some bias. And this is just a little reminder that we are all prone to be biased at some point. Work on it every day to get better. These avatars are created by Logo by Nick. He has a YouTube channel as well, and he shows how to use Inkscape to draw avatar like this using basic shapes. So if you need to make a scientific poster, make sure to check him out. And thank you, Nick. I'm going to describe a few things that you can do to check your personal bias. Is to start sensing your gravity, sensing your body weight. Be present. How does that mean? If when you talk to someone, think about what that person is telling you, imagine that perspective, and try to gain an awareness of where this is coming from. And remind yourself, whatever label you have put on that person is like a jar. If you're covering everything with label, you will never see the content inside the jar. And your judgment may not be accurate anymore. Like I reuse peanut butter jars for my cookies, and people who come into my home will be confused because they say, oh, this is saying peanut butter, but look, it's cookie inside. Stop thinking of that person as the label of ethnicity, the label of gender. Label was helpful when we were defending ourselves from fire. If we learn that fire is dangerous, electricity is dangerous, so you know not to go there. Label between human, it's better to remove them and let the experience teach you about that person. Because if we build science upon our own perception of who is more credible, it's easy that we are falling into the trap that we believe in one source of information more than the other. Ask yourself this question. Did you cite a paper because that person is coming from a famous university? Did you invite a keynote speaker in the talk? Are all of these keynote speakers from Europe and from America? Do we have representatives from East Asia and Japan and China? That's the question to ask. You can also check your department. Are all the professors male? And are those people who get tenure and promoted male and white? Is there something we can do to make sure we are fair to all genders and all races? Do you lose interest when someone speaks with an English accent? I would admit in the past, sometimes accents can be problematic for our understanding, but I also know that there is an implicit bias I have. When someone speaks perfect English, I would automatically assume that science is good, at least for the beginning years of my PhD. Do you give more respect because someone is bold? If a male has no hair, they look more authoritative. So do we tend to be more threatened by the appearance and try to give more space and more resources to this person? These are all questions that we could ask, and there is no right or wrong answer. I think the moment we start knowing our bias and trying to keep this bias in check, that's the place to start to build this world to make it a little more equal, because we need diversity in science to do better, and we need voices from every different upbringing. When we grow up, we only have 2 parents in the household and maybe a few elder siblings if you have siblings. The information you get and the perception of the world is not thorough. You have a sample size limitation of 2 to 10 if you have big family. But once you get into the society and in college, open-minded people will learn that there are different forms of shapes of life that people can live, and you can unlearn what is not applicable from your family to the next row. But of course, there is another type of people that just shut down from the learning experience, and that creates problem. So I hope this video teach you the power of understanding bias and how you can get the most out of your PhD by learning about your bias, and actively bringing this to a discussion is a good start, and bringing this to other people to ask if they feel the same way. It's a way to reduce this bias. And with less and less bias, we're going to have more all-rounded ideas. We'll have more female leadership, knowing what's the needs and products for the female. In the past, all the CEOs are male, so maybe they don't produce a product good for the females. Things like that. I remember when I was in the States, the first time I was aware of the issue in the society was due to Black History Month. And before then, I only know about African community from movies. It was a moment that I got to learn the history and the society problem and bias that we might have in this current education system. Getting my training in Hong Kong, I was unaware of anything they say. And in Hong Kong, the history was taught. I hated history classes. But now knowing how this history is affecting our daily lives, I was intrigued, and I have learned a lot more since then. So my suggestion is to remain curious, remain humble, and learn from what you have in your resources, and try to have conversation and listen to people. With that, I hope this is going to help you grow as a researcher on this topic. I hope you were inspired by this video. This is not a typical conversation. I leave you with that. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button if you like this video, and share this with someone who are confused about how to check bias. I hope this is meaningful in a way that they can have practical tips to follow to reduce bias. And thank you for watching. I will see you the next time.